So, today we're diving into one of the most powerful and honestly gut-wrenching stories from the 17th century, Ben's Oroonoko. It's an incredible tale about a prince, a tragic love affair, and a brutal, desperate fight for freedom. But I have to give you a heads up right now. This story does not have a happy ending. Its conclusion is one of the most intense and tragical ever come across, so just be prepared for a pretty difficult journey.
Everything we're about to talk about, it all boils down to this one single idea. This belief is the engine that drives every single major decision, every sacrifice, and ultimately, the unforgettable and brutal end of our hero's story. Keep this phrase in your head as we go through this, because it explains everything.
To really understand our hero, we can't start with him as a slave. No, we have to meet him as he was meant to be, a young, powerful African prince. His story doesn't begin in chains, it begins in a royal court, filled with honor, love, and what should have been a great future. So this is him. Meet Oroonoko. He's only 17 years old, but he's already a celebrated prince and a military genius in his kingdom of Coromantien. He's been trained for leadership his entire life. I really want you to lock this image of power and dignity in your mind, because it's a world away from the tragic figure he's about to become. Oroonoko's whole life pivots the day he goes to pay his respects to the family of a general who literally died saving him in battle. And there, he meets the general's daughter, a woman named Imwenda. For both of them, it is instant. They fall deeply and completely in love, and this connection they forge is going to define the rest of their lives. But, of course, their happiness is incredibly short-lived. Word of Imwenda's beauty reaches Oroonoko's own grandfather, the king, who is, get this, over 100 years old. He gets insanely jealous, decides he wants her, and sends her the royal veil. Now, this isn't a proposal, it's a command. It means she's now his property, and just like that, the two lovers are torn apart. So how does a prince end up in chains? It wasn't a battle. It wasn't a single enemy. His fate is sealed by two devastating betrayals, one from his own family and another from people who only see him as cargo to be sold. Yeah, the treachery comes from two directions, and it is just brutal. First, the king finds out Oroonoko and Imwenda secretly got married anyway. He is so enraged that he sells Imwenda, who, by the way, is now pregnant, into slavery. Then, an English ship captain strikes a deal with the king. He invites Prince Oroonoko and 100 of his best soldiers onto his ship for a party. And of course, it's a trap. He gets them all drunk, captures them, and sells every last one of them into slavery. Now, to cover his own butt and avoid his grandson's fury, the king tells Oroonoko an absolutely monstrous lie. He says Imwenda was executed for her defiance. And here's the sickest part, the most twisted irony. He justifies it using the very principle of honor they all live by, saying that a noble death was way better for her than the dishonor of being sold. So just imagine that. You've lost your freedom, your title, and you've been told the love of your life is dead. Oroonoko is shipped across the ocean, and his journey ends on the brutal sugar plantations in the colony of Suriname. Now this is where things get a little strange. Oroonoko is sold to a man named Treffry, who isn't your typical cruel slave master. Treffry sees Oroonoko's nobility right away, treats him with this weird kind of respect, and even calls him brother. But, and this is a huge but, for all the kind words, Treffry is still his master. He never gives Oroonoko the one thing he actually wants, his freedom. And then, something happens that just seems impossible. Treffry, trying to be a good guy, tells Oroonoko about this beautiful female slave he just bought, thinking, maybe Oroonoko could find some comfort with her. He brings her forward, and it's Imwenda. Against all odds, sold into slavery, an ocean apart, they found each other on the exact same plantation. It is this one moment of just pure, unbelievable joy in the middle of a total nightmare. Treffry actually allows them to live together as husband and wife, which gives them this brief flicker of hope. But this reunion, this small bit of happiness, is tragically going to be the very thing that sparks a desperate and violent fight for freedom. Just one single fact changes the entire game. It's not long before Oroonoko and Imwenda realize something both wonderful and absolutely terrifying. Imwenda is pregnant again with Oroonoko's child. For Oroonoko, this is a line in the sand. The thought of his child, a royal heir, being born into a life of slavery is completely unthinkable. His fight isn't just for himself anymore. It's not even just for Amonda. It's for the future of his family. So he organizes the other slaves, and he leads a full-blown rebellion. They fight like hell, but in the end, it fails. The slave owners, led by the governor, pull the oldest trick in the book. They promise mercy and a peaceful surrender if the slaves just give up. It's a lie. The second they lay down their weapons, the promise is broken. Oroonoko and a pregnant Imoinda manage to escape, but now they're fugitives, hunted in a foreign land. They know that being captured is just a matter of time. And as they're hiding, Oroonoko is faced with a choice so horrific it is almost impossible to wrap your head around. And this is the tragic climax of their story. You have to put yourself in his shoes. He knows he's going to be executed for leading the revolt. But what happens to Imoinda? What kind of revenge, what kind of humiliation and suffering will those men inflict on her and their unborn child? He knows it will be a fate worse than death. He comes to a conclusion that is just shattering. The only way to protect her honor, the only way to save her from something he considers far, far worse than death, is to kill her himself. It is the ultimate, most tragic act of love you can imagine. And here's what's so powerful. Imoinda understands. She doesn't see it as murder. She sees it as mercy. She agrees. And she faces her husband's dagger with a smile, welcoming death as the final escape from the horrors that are definitely coming for her. Oroonoko is just destroyed by grief. He stays by her body for days, completely unable to move. And that's where they finally capture him. But even then, even in total defeat, his final moments are this unbelievable testament to his unbreakable spirit. His execution isn't just an execution. It's designed for maximum cruelty. They hang him upside down. He's asked if he has a last wish, and he just asks for a pipe of tobacco so he can endure the pain without showing any weakness. And then they start. They dismember him while he's still alive, cutting off his fingers, then his ears, his nose, and then his arms, one by one. And through all of it, he just calmly smokes his pipe, right up until his last arm is cut off and he finally dies. So why are we still talking about this story over 300 years later? It's because of these incredibly powerful themes. You've got love and honor, and the insane sacrifices Oroonoko and Imoinda make for each other. You see the brutal reality of slavery and dehumanization when a literal prince is treated like an object. The entire story is driven by betrayal from family and from outsiders. And at its heart, it's about this desperate struggle for freedom, all set against the ugly backdrop of colonialism and racism. And in the end, the story leaves us with this huge, haunting question. Oroonoko truly believed that death was better than slavery. He paid the highest price imaginable, his wife, his child, and his own life, to stand by that belief. And it forces us to ask ourselves, is there any price that is too high to pay for freedom?